Welcome to Creative Mornings Derby. Has anybody in here, if you stick your hand up, not been to a Creative Mornings event yet? Oh wow, loads of you. Okay. Well, today it's a slightly different format Creative Mornings event because usually we have a keynote speaker who talks on the monthly topic of flow this month, but unfortunately Kelly Herrick, who was on board, has had to retire a little bit early and a little bit short notice, but we've got you covered. We've come up with an innovative solution where you get to hear us do a bit more of an open mic style interpretation of flow. So you'll hear from me, the lovely guys at Futureproof, who are our videographers, Hannah from Mainframe, who was the lady at the front that signed you in, and any of you guys that want to do 5 minutes on your interpretation of flow will get your opportunity. But that's not the only opportunity you'll get. We also open the mic out to do 30-second pitches where you can talk about anything you want, about your business, tell us about a new thing, whatever you want. And that will be just after the main talk. Oh. Oh, hey. Right, so welcome to Creative Mornings. For all of you that haven't been before, we have a little manifesto. So there's 264 cities, I believe, around the world that speak on the same topic every month. And this is our little manifesto. It starts with everyone is creative and everyone is welcome. I won't read off a slide, I'm not that guy. But we can't do this without our global partners. We've got MailChimp, Adobe and WordPress that support Creative Mornings across the globe, which we appreciate. We get to communicate with you by email via MailChimp. All the lovely slides are designed by our Adobe packages. And WordPress.com is where the main site lives. Oh, I need to be over there to click, apparently, which is good. Oh, no. It's going the wrong way. Hold on, I'll do it like this. Okay, but we can't do this particular Creative Mornings Derby, without our local partners. Hannah, do you want to come up?
Hi, gang.
The main one being Mainframe and part of the big house, which Hannah will explain a lot more better than
I'll do my best.
Go.
Morning, everybody. Mainframe is part of an amazing collaboration of 7 organisations across Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham, Nottinghamshire, and we are here to support digital and creative people and businesses. So anyone from someone with a good idea, they think they might like to start out in something digital or creative, through to large, well-established SMEs who are looking for ways to grow and develop their business. So we are here as part of that. Mainframe from Quad. We do networking, events, getting people together. We're all about building our local community of creative people to get together, share good ideas, share inspiration, stories, all that good stuff. So that is Mainframe. And the big house, I see I have managed to persuade quite a few of you to fill out the exciting form. If you need any help with that, please catch me afterwards, because there is some amazing help through all the partners in the big house. It's definitely worth doing.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, fab.
Hannah, well, Mainframe. Which brings us to our next partner, the amazing Futureproof Films, who you will see attached to some tech equipment around the back of the room. Big round of applause for Futureproof, please. Thank you very much. And one more for Yvonne. Where is Yvonne? Oh, over in the back there, Essential Print Services, who helps us do all the lovely flyers and the banner you can see out the front. Very good. Thank you, Yvonne. Right. So, without further ado, we're going to start the ad-libby main bit of the event. This may go amazingly well, or it may not. We shall figure it out as we go along. So today's topic is flow. Flow was chosen by a Mexican chapter. So just to give you a bit more of a background, every month a chapter gets to choose what topic we speak about. So we know a year in advance what topics are coming up. And you can interpret these topics in any way you like. It's really, really interesting. And we've had some great speakers so far. We've had The End, where a guy called Amir talked about the end of his life. It sounds a bit depressing for a Friday morning, but it was really quite intelligent. And we had Justice from Rob over there, Future-Proof Rob. You can see that on our page, along with all of our films. But today, like I say, we had Kelly Herrick, who unfortunately couldn't be with us, who was going to talk about CreativeFlow. So I'm going to kick us off with what I think flow is. I'm going to have to read it off my phone because we haven't had long to prepare. So when I heard about the topic of flow, I always thought, go with the flow. I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. And I heard an analogy a long time ago from one of my favourite marketing people called Seth Godin. Anybody heard of Seth Godin? Excellent. And he writes a daily blog post for all of you people who've not heard of him. And one of those blog posts, he referred to the difference between a map and a compass. And I've always liked that analogy of having a compass and following your true north. So I'm just going to read that short blog post. It will be super short. So the map has been replaced by the compass. The map keeps getting redrawn because it's cheaper than ever to go off-road, to develop and innovate and remake what we thought was going to be next. Technology keeps changing the routes we take to get from our projects from here to there. It doesn't memorize the route because it's going to change soon. The compass, on the other hand, is more important than ever. If you don't know which direction you're going, how will you know if you're going off course? And yet, we spend most of our time learning or teaching or following a map. Yesterday's map, it was already drawn. We're anxious and we're afraid to spend any time at all calibrating our compass. And that's what kind of flow means to me. Right? You always need a compass that directs you to your purpose, to your true north that you're following. It doesn't matter what tiny steps on the plan you have, as long as you're always guided to your true north. And that's what being in flow means to me. As long as I can always have a sense check, follow my compass that I'm heading in the right direction, I'm a happy guy. So that's what I think flow is. Who's coming up next? Hannah? This is Hannah from Mainframe, everybody. Thank you very much. I'll go take photos.
Hey.
Hold on.
Now, I'm going to get you to do something a little bit different, and you all just going to have to go with me, because if we all do it together, we won't feel silly, okay? So if I could ask you if you're able to stand up for me. This morning, we are going to do what they call a little bit of warrior breathing. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of warrior breathing before. Thank God, so if I get it wrong, no one will know. Right, so this is the idea of getting into a creative flow state by oxygenating your body. So what we are all going to do together is about 10 big breaths in through our nose, like that, and then we are going to force that breath out loudly. So we're going to keep doing that. Ready? And then we might move our shoulders as we're doing it. We might wiggle our hips as we're doing it. Keep going. Get that oxygen going around our body. Wiggle our hips, shoulders. Anyone feeling a little bit lightheaded? I am. Right, all good. Okay, so you may all now sit down. Thank you for doing that with me. You are now very well oxygenated. And a lot of people say that that is a state in which you can therefore get more quickly into your creative flow. So when I realised I was going to have to stand up and talk to you about creative flow, I instantly read, hacks. How can I hack getting into my creative flow? Which was quite interesting. And there are a lot of hacks out there for getting into your creative flow state. Because the idea of being in creative flow means that you are doing a task that is challenging but achievable. So I think for a lot of us, that's probably our day jobs, challenging but achievable. Hopefully it's something that you enjoy. So you have to be engaged with the task. It's not boring, it's not disinteresting. You've got to be into what you're doing. And there are lots of other elements that make up being in this state of creative flow. I think we've all been there when the time flies by, when you're doing something and you feel in your groove and it's you know, you suddenly go, oh my God, I've been here for 2 hours. It's got to be active, not passive. So I often get into the state when I'm watching films and you suddenly go, oh, 2 hours whizzed by. But that's quite passive. Getting into your flow state is more about actively doing something. So you'll often hear people who do sports, extreme sports, getting into their flow, getting into a flow state, athletes using this idea of getting into their flow state. What I wanted to pose to you was a question. As a bunch of creative people, how do you switch on creativity? How do you instantly get into your flow state when what you've got to do is a project, it's at work, and someone is asking you to be creative between this time of day, that time of day, it's a project and it's due tomorrow. So would it be useful if you could get yourself into creative flow through some creative, hacks, so that when you've got to sit down and go, right, this project, I've got to sit down and do it this afternoon, I've got to be creative between these hours, if you could get yourself into that flow state. Does anybody here have any tips or tricks that they use to get themselves into that I've instantly got to be creative mode?
I did read an interesting article in the HBR, so like Harvard Business Review, right? Really, really standard. Last week, last year, I think, back end of last year, that drunk people are more creative than sober people. So I had a period of time of going to the pub when I needed to be creative, which was, I mean, it was short-lived, if I'm honest. You get kind of foggy after a while. That was one idea.
So different location, I would class that under.
Yeah, let's do that.
So thank you, guys. Thank you for bearing with me through a bit of warrior breathing, which I now imagine you will all do as part of your creative process of getting into the flow. So thank you very much.
Now, next is Rob from Future Proof Films, who will come up and do his 5 minutes. There he is. Rob, take it away, my man.
Hiya. I have been fortunate enough to do one of these before. If you're wondering how well it went, I was the sole speaker then. Now I'm part of a collective thing. So it didn't go amazing.
We've downgraded you.
But full disclosure, we were told yesterday that the speaker had pulled out or couldn't make it. And so we had to jump in, and we were going to encourage people to join in. And I thought, it's a bit of an unfair advantage, so I've decided to stick to what I thought of in those first 2 minutes, because that's kind of what the time you guys have got to think about it. And the first thing that came into my mind, because I'm a child, is the toilet. And I thought, okay, now I'm mid-30s, I could talk about how I look forward to that 2 a.m. wake up to go down to the toilet, disrupt that sleeping pattern. And then I thought, I don't want to talk about the toilet. But then I couldn't stop thinking about the toilet. So a conversation just a week or so ago with my wife and my stepdaughter, who comes into the office quite a lot. And she's 17, and she likes to check YouTube's working. I tell her that's the role she's doing, because we're a video company. We need to know YouTube's up. So she watches things on YouTube. And over dinner, my wife says, what's Rob like at work? And I was like, ooh, interesting. And if any of you've got teenage kids, you'll know that they don't actually talk that much. And she said it so fast and without, just without a filter. She was like, he goes to the toilet a lot. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I started thinking, I think I do. And then I started, doing a few health things. I'll book in for my prostate exam with a friendly doctor at some point, I guess. But then I started thinking about it, and I do. And I started, the next few days, I was really hyper aware of it. I would finish a little task, and then I'd go to the toilet. Toilet's just outside the office. And I was like, okay, why am I doing this? And I think what I'm doing is I'm manufacturing those moments where when you start out as a creative and you're waiting for ideas to come, you'll really lament on them, and you'll go for a walk, they'll hit you in the shower, they'll do things like that. And I think that's what I'm doing. I'm finishing this, little script, And then I'm like, yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then I'll walk away, go to the toilet, and I'll come back, and I'll be like, or while I'm in the toilet, I'll be like, you know what? Maybe it's all rubbish. And I'll go back, and I'll look, and 80%'s great, you know, on a good day. And then I'll change it, and I'll tweak it. And it's kind of, and Hannah touched on it as well, it's that forced creativity and those ways that you do that. The only way it really affects me is if I've got a line of 10 small tasks. So I'm doing 10 trips to the toilet, you know. Can't be good. If I don't have a bladder problem, it's surely causing one. But yeah, for me, it's engineering that process of dwelling on that idea, letting it ferment a little bit. And I know it's only that 2 minutes, but it really has helped. And I think that's why I continue to do it. Yeah, I think that's all I've got on flow. Next time, I'll probably update you on the exam, see how that goes.
So, over to you guys. Now you've seen how we did it. It's open to you. Anybody want to stick their hand up? Anybody want to have a go? Come on, Lizzie, let's go.
Now, this is the bit where, would anyone like to talk about flow? Or Lizzie, I know you wanted to talk about your organisation.
I want to talk about flow.
Flow first. Go for it. Go for it.
Do both.
As well.
Excellent, Lizzie Page.
Well, I want to start by asking you a question, which is, when do you get your best and most creative ideas? So anyone like to suggest when? What sort of times? What are you doing when you get your best ideas? 6:30 in the shower.
6:30 in the shower? Anytime there's no way to record my idea.
Okay. So when there's no time to record the idea. Anything else? Yep. Yep, just waking up in the morning.
It used to be like 1 a.m.
1 a.m., so when you've just woken up in the middle of the night.
I get a lot driving, which is, again, very awkward to record my idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So driving. So one of my colleagues did some research on when people get their best ideas. I think number one was in the shower and driving, out running, things like that, out, walking the dogs, all those kind of things. And I think we can all relate to that. It's like your mind is in neutral and something just appears as if from nowhere. And, this is the nature of creativity. It's in us and it comes out when we're not necessarily expecting it. But, it seems to me that we have these two kind of parts to us, the head, the intellect part, and then whatever you want to call that other creative part, the sort of inspired, innate, that sort of heart part of us. And apparently we have the ancient Greeks to blame for the fact that we've kind of really, in our society, gone for the head bit, the bit they call logos. And the ancient Greek philosophers kind of decided that logos was much more important than this other part of us, which is the mythos. That, obviously the word myth comes from that bit. We don't really understand that creative part, that something new that just kind of comes to us and we don't really understand it. So we've kind of built a society where we really rely on this intellect, this logos bit, this part of us that we've learned, that we've studied, that we've been told what to do, and we can kind of feel that we can rely on that. And we can, to a certain extent. And it can get us a long way. But actually, the real genius, the real new and creative ideas don't tend to come from that place. And that's why you don't get your best ideas when you're staring at an Excel spreadsheet or when you're sitting over a piece of paper going, I really need to get this done right now. Because that's when you're stuck in your head part. And the realization that it's safe to let go of that when we're in that, I really need to do this, I really need to sort this, if I think hard enough, then I'll solve this problem. If I write enough lists of pros and cons, then I'll be able to make a decision. When we find ourselves in that space, then that's the signal to take a step back and look for something different and listen for what I call the soft flute of wisdom or creativity that's playing in the background when the brass band of intellect is all blazing in our head. So that for me is when we sink into this state of flow, is when we allow that inner part of ourselves just to come through, and we don't take this intellectual headspace part quite so seriously. And just to add, the book on flow, I think it's the kind of seminal text by this guy, Chihawi or something like that, some funny name, is actually a really, really good read. And if you're interested in this subject, I thoroughly recommend it, because it's a lot less dense than it might first appear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we're looking at probably 2 more of these before we go into lightning talk. Stephen, do you want to come up?
Is that microphone actually doing anything?
It's for the video.
Cameras, right, okay, so you want to use it, okay.
Thank you very much.
If I plug in now, will I come on?
Probably. We can try it if you like.
Yeah.
What, have you got a Mac? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the right
Same.
kind of adapter. Give it a go. Okay, my name's Stephen, and I work at the Creative Quarter in Nottingham, and we are part of the Big House. We're one of the Big House partners, and we help to run this project, including what happens here. One of the important reasons that we run the Big House project is not, I'm afraid, to make all of you rich and wealthy and creatively self-actualized. We hope that happens as a byproduct, but the purpose is to build the creative economy, the creative and digital economy in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire in order to create jobs. Now, I'm interested, and when it started immediately when I thought about flow, I was thinking about not creative flow in terms of the process individually about how you go from not having had the idea to having had and developed and executed and exploited the idea, but the flow of creative flow amongst businesses and between businesses, and on the back of that, the flow of wealth that is related to that, because I think it's really important if we think about building the economy in order that the creative and digital economy, in order that we can create jobs for people, both creative people and for people in the businesses that are supportive of the creative economy, that we think about where we put our work out to. Where do we push creative flow to? Nottingham Castle currently, you might know, is being refurbished for 2030. There's a big programme going on there. They have appointed a Bristol digital agency and a Leeds PR agency. That's a no-brainer, not a good idea to me, because I think we should be making sure that the creative value and the wealth associated with the creative work we do flows amongst us and amidst our community. I think there are lots of benefits to that. It's not going to work, is it? Or is it?
I've swapped to mine. It's just the CQ website.
Yes, it is, yes. It'll come up then. I shouldn't have done that in the first place. It's not enough just to talk about thinking that should happen. It's not enough just to say to people, so why don't you do something about making sure when you're making your decisions, procurement decisions, recruitment decisions, about how it is that you ensure that that wealth flows in and around and amongst our community. You have to do something about it. So my pitch, which is flicking into what might be my 30-second pitch later on, if it comes up, is that we've created a tool to make it easier for people to describe who they are and what they do, and to be found by other people in the creative community who want to use those services. Now, we hope that means that all kinds of businesses will look for obviously there's a Nottingham focus, but a Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire business to procure from in the first instance, and we're hopeful that creative businesses will find it a useful tool in order to collaborate with each other when they're looking to put together creative solutions as well. It will come up. It's called CQ Finder currently. It's very simple. It takes just a few minutes to create yourself a profile, and you're then able to search for all sorts of things, find yourself, find other people. I think there's a couple of other things that it will help do, because we're going to add a job search, so it's easier to recruit people and it's easier for people to find jobs in the creative economy. And we're going to add a property search as well, because we're always getting calls from people saying, do you know where there's the right kind of workspace or office or workshop or studio that I can find? We'll give up on it, I think. It will come. Yeah. And it takes a while. And the other thing, of course, which we must not forget, which Greta won't let us forget, localised supply chains reduce your carbon footprint. And that's something that we should all be thinking about as well. If you are interested and you do want to create a profile, we will ask you a couple of questions along the way. It still only takes a few minutes because we want to know how many businesses we've got and where they are and how many people they're employing, so that in 12 and 24 and 36 months' time, we can ask those questions again and we can work out, coming back to my first point, whether we are being successful in growing the scale, impact and value of the creative and digital economies of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. Thank you very much. It'll come now.
What we'll do as well, we'll make sure that links in our newsletter and stuff going out next time, so everybody gets it who signed up. So last one, while we figure out what happened to my Mac for changing. So, oh no, we've got a battle. Do you want to arm wrestle for it, that exciting way?
Or rap battle.
Rap battle. That's John. Go on then. Go on then. Paul has enough of the limelight, doesn't he? Come on, John. Up you come. Thank you very much.
This feels like an award.
It might, yeah, woo!
So I was really interested in Flow this morning because there's a kind of linked concept, I suppose, to Flow that I wanted to kind of find out more about Flow to see where it kind of flowed into it. And that was the concept of 10,000 hours. Does anyone here understand or know or heard of 10,000 hours? A few people. I'm surprised there's not more because it's quite linked to the creative industries, especially in the design industry, graphics, computer graphics, games. There's a great group on Facebook called 10,000 Hours. Do search for it. But it's the idea that if you do something for 10,000 hours or more, you become a master at it. You become an expert at it. And I came across this with a bit of a background in game development, 3D modeling, animation. But my job is actually here in Quad. I'm the digital participation curator here at Quad. And there was aspects of my job that kept getting me down. Emails, admin, Excel spreadsheets, line management, all these things that weren't making me creative. And one thing that came to me following a leadership program that I went through was about acceptance. And actually, these are all things that are part of my job. These are all things that make up those 10,000 hours. Does anyone know how long 10,000 hours is? Exactly. Can you kind of put it into a day, year, month? Okay, who here has been in their job or their career for more than 5.5 years? Most people in this room. You are now masters of what you do because you've done it for 10,000 hours. Okay, that doesn't include annual leave, it doesn't include time off sick and things like that. But hours to working hours, contracted hours, that's 10,000 hours. And I kind of still keep it at that amount purely because you're thinking about it when you're traveling, commuting, you do all those things. So it's really hard to kind of compute. But that concept really shifted how I thought about my job, how I thought about what I do, and it made me confident, it made me creative, it made me accept all the little nuances and things in the day that actually I wouldn't necessarily normally consider was my job, but it was absolutely my job. And so I just wanted to share that with you because for me, 10,000 hours has become my flow, has become my kind of driving force within what I do. It's massively changed my outlook on my career and the directions that I want to take. And it's really kind of made me think about where I can contribute to the sector. So that's why I thought I'd stick my hand up. So that's kind of my sharing. I think that probably was 2 minutes. That's fine. Yeah. I was waiting for the GQ thing to come up, the CQ thing to come up.
John, it's interesting talking about the 10,000 hours because if you go and have a look at the psychologist whose name is very difficult to say, so I won't, whose the flow talk is based on, he argues, that if you get into creative flow, it can reduce that 10,000 hours by about half. So people getting into this flow state as quickly as they can could reduce your 10,000 hours.
Exactly, and like I said, it's about that acceptance of what's happening, because those working in the games industry, doing 3D modeling, animation, game engines, all that kind of stuff, part of that 10,000 hours is software failing. Part of that 10,000 hours is dealing with clients. Part of that 10,000 hours is computers that don't work. Accepting those things that are not directly the creative output, means that you're mastering what you're doing. And that was just something that was really important to me. So thank you. Thank you. And I will pass the award over to Tim.
Oh, thanks. So, just to round up the day before we hit the coffee and the remaining, we've got sausage wraps left. We've got a few people lined up for 30-second lightning talks. I think, Lizzie, you were one, weren't you? Do you want to come back up and start? Oh, yep.
Sorry, me again. I don't mean to monopolise.
I'm in the way.
I wanted to just speak briefly because I'm launching a new podcast. Hopefully today. I'm not a tech person, I'm a life coach. But it was surprisingly easy to launch this podcast, which is slightly freaking me out because I don't know if I've done it properly. But I really would love to ask for your support with this. It's a very short podcast, 5 to 10 minutes for each episode. It's aimed at young people, teenagers and young people who are struggling with mental health issues. And it's to point them back to their resilience and well-being. And what I'm aiming for is just 5 to 10 minutes of inspiration, of changing perspective, of helping people to see the world differently and in a way that serves their mental health. It's called It's Good to Be Me. It's got a big yellow speech bubble on a turquoise background. It should be up today. And if you would do me the favour of going and looking for it, it should be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those places, wherever you get your podcasts from, and subscribe. I don't think it's there yet, unfortunately. I hoped it would be. And subscribe to it, and if you have a listen, leave me a hopefully positive review, then I know all of this gets it kind of further up the rankings. And if, in the case it doesn't go up today, if you'd be willing to link with me on LinkedIn, I'm Lizzie Paish, P-A-I-S-H, or just give me your business card and I will send you an email when it's out. And I would really appreciate any support that you can give me. It's called It's Good to Be Me, because it is.
Thank you, Lizzie. Luke, come on. I think we have our first Creative Mornings Derby poem coming up. Is that right? Like the first one ever. Here you go. Can you hold that and read? Yeah, at the top.
Hi, thank you all for listening. So I'm an aspiring poet. I'm going to self-publish my book of poems, hopefully next year. It's called Time Frame of Love. No human is limited. Turning a leaf, what defines you? Instinct into a craft, grown from childhood. Crazy ideas seem daft. Difference is beautiful. A new leaf, perseverance. Exhausted as could be. I want to look into your eyes. Immersed into illumination. What seems the impossible as stopping a storm in harmony to more that I can be. Your sharp tongue, hidden hurt. Why were you so curt? I see your indifference to bare determination. A kiss stopping the rain, a hint of a smile, 1,000 running miles. At the top of my heart, it's no longer a fight. In the moment, be as happy as you can be. No longer chasing. Amongst the sweat and tears running 1,000 miles, I adore every mile. When I was alone, I wasn't alone. It's not how you see, it's what you see. Turning a leaf, what defines you? Success is finally mine. Until what defines you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us towards the last bit of networky little bits. Thank you very much, everybody, for bearing with us on this ad-lib edition of Creative Mornings Derby. Let's thank everybody who chipped in. Hannah from Mainframe. Where's Rob? Rob from Future Proof. John? Where's Lizzie? Lizzie? Thank you very much. Is that it? There was another one, right? Oh, me? Oh, yeah, no. They know about me. Fine. Oh, and Stephen. There we go. Do you want to do 30 seconds? Do you want to do a quick 30 seconds? Oh, you're all right. What we'll do, the lovely website and tool that was displayed, we will put in our email so you will all get to go have a play on it. It would be lovely.
I've got a last thing. Just if anyone is got a form and needs some help, got any questions, I'm obviously here. So please grab me, and I can help you with anything you need.
And next month, we're back on the 3rd Friday of every month with Sharon Roberts speaking, who is here. Sharon Roberts. And that brings us to the end, people. But thank you very much to Mainframe, all the good people at the Quad Cafe, good people, Quad.
Thank you, Quad.
The Big House, the future-proof crew, and Yvonne Gorman at the back. And now you can go and have some coffee and eat. Thank you very much, people.
Yay.